All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're building your ultimate exam-focused cheat sheet for mastering project management. Whether you're tackling a massive infrastructure initiative or just rolling out a new software system, the core principles, yeah, they're exactly the same. We're going to strip away all the fluff, focus purely on what you absolutely need to know, and give you the mental hooks to actually remember these concepts when you're under pressure in that exam room. Let's get into it.
To keep us on track, here's a quick look at the agenda. We're hitting 6 key areas: the balancing act, key players, the life cycle, planning tools, dodging disaster, and finally, the final evaluation.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the balancing act, scope, schedule, and cost. Okay, so the crucial starting point here is understanding that unlike permanent day-to-day operations, a project is a temporary, one-off effort. It has a strict deadline and a strict budget. Think of it like this. Day-to-day operations are like running a bakery, right? You bake bread every single day. A project, though, is building the actual bakery itself. Because it's temporary and usually involves cross-functional teams dealing with totally new challenges for the very first time, you absolutely have to manage it differently than standard operations. And that brings us to the famous iron triangle. This is the ultimate project dilemma. You've got 3 main constraints: scope, schedule, and cost. And they are all balancing right around quality. You can literally think of it as a rigid metal frame. If you pull hard on one corner, you are inevitably going to bend and distort the quality right in the middle. This is the absolute bedrock of project management theory. You have what you're building, how much time you have, and how much money you can spend. And the quality, well, it sits right in the middle, totally at the mercy of the tension between those 3 points. Now here's a massive tip for your exam. If you see a question pop up about opportunity costs, remember the triangle. Increasing the project scope naturally demands more time or more money. Squeezing the schedule, well, that forces you to either narrow the scope or seriously hike up your budget. You literally cannot pull one corner without messing with the others. If a stakeholder suddenly wants a bigger scope, your job as the project manager is to confidently say, sure, but it's going to cost more or take longer. Moving right along to Section 2, let's meet the key players. So, John Adair's action-centered leadership model is a total classic for exams. It shows how a project manager has to constantly juggle 3 competing things: the task, the team, and the individual. Think TTI. If a manager focuses purely on the task and totally ignores the individuals, team spirit just collapses. But if they focus too much on everyone getting along and ignore the task, nothing actually gets delivered. The project manager is literally the glue in that overlapping center, holding the whole shebang together. Now, it is absolutely vital to separate these 2 specific roles in your mind for the exam. The project manager is down in the day-to-day trenches, right? Meanwhile, the project sponsor holds the purse strings and makes sure the project actually makes business sense. Examiners love, and I mean love, to test you on this distinction. The sponsor funds it. They care about high-level governance and the ultimate business case. The project manager is the one executing the work, putting out daily fires, and managing the team to actually deliver on that vision. All right, Section 3, the project life cycle. So, here is your roadmap. Think of the project life cycle as the ultimate antidote to chaos. It provides the structural backbone for any successful endeavor. Without a structured life cycle, a project is basically just a group of people making educated guesses about what to do next. This cycle forces a logical progression. You have to define the why before the how, and you definitely need to define the how before you start actually building anything. Here are the 4 chronological steps you've got to memorize: initiation, planning, execution, and closure. Just remember IPEC. In initiation, you establish the feasibility and draft your project initiation document, or PID. In planning, you're drafting the schedules and budgets. Execution is the big one, the longest phase where the physical deliverables are actually built, and you're constantly monitoring for variances. Finally, closure is where you hand it all over, release your staff, and actually evaluate what just happened. Let's transition to Section 4, essential planning tools. First up, a work breakdown structure, or WBS, decomposes the exact tasks that need to be done. It answers the what by breaking a massive, scary project down into bite-sized, estimable subtasks. Then, right next to it, the Gantt chart maps out the when, plotting that visual timeline across a calendar. It's a genuinely fantastic visual for showing project status at a glance, but there is a catch. The catch is that Gantt charts don't really show dependencies. That's exactly why we use a network diagram. We use it to find the critical path, which is the longest sequence of activities that dictates your absolute shortest completion time. Let me just say that again because I know it sounds super counterintuitive. The critical path is the longest sequence of dependent tasks, so it determines the absolute shortest possible time you can finish the whole project. If task B literally cannot start until task A is done, that's a dependency, and the network diagram models that perfectly. Okay, take a deep breath and relax for a second because here is some great exam advice. While you absolutely must understand that delaying the critical path delays the entire project, you will not have to actually draw this complex diagram yourself. No way. Just remember the core concept. If a critical path task slips, your final project deadline is going to slip right along with it, unless you jump in and take immediate corrective action. Moving into Section 5, Dodging Disaster, focusing on risk, slippage, and change. Let's talk about the UK's HS2 railway. This is the ultimate real-world example of the Iron Triangle totally collapsing. Initially estimated at £37.5 billion, costs absolutely spiraled past $125 billion. Why? Well, write down these two massive exam buzzwords. Optimism bias, which means wildly unrealistic initial estimates with zero realistic scrutiny, and scope creep, which is uncontrolled changes to the project's parameters over time. This case study is a perfect, glaring example of why rigorous initial estimates and strict change control are just absolutely non-negotiable. On a similar note, the CAET insurance software disaster is a textbook exam scenario showing a massive failure in risk assessment. They literally skipped the risk assessment. They had users who didn't understand the industry, they rolled out a totally unfamiliar programming language without testing it first, and they still promised exacting high performance. To dodge a bullet like this, they should have scheduled pilot tests, brought in experienced staff, and built prototypes to reduce that massive uncertainty before spending a single dime on the actual execution. Finally, Section 6, the final evaluation. You have got to distinguish between these two reviews for your exam. The post-project review looks inward at the management team's internal procedures right after finishing. The post-implementation review looks outward at the customer's actual experience months later. So the post-project review happens before the team even disbands. It basically asks, hey, did our project management procedures work? The post-implementation review happens several months later, once the dust has totally settled. That one asks, did the product we built actually deliver the benefits we promised in that original business case? So, as you head into your exam, I want you to consider this. If an organization never conducts these final reviews, how can they ever hope to prevent their next million-dollar disaster? Seriously, a project isn't truly successful just because it was delivered on time. It's successful if it continually adds real value long after the original team has moved on. Keep these vital distinctions sharp, always remember the Iron Triangle, and you are going to absolutely crush this topic. Thanks for hanging out and learning with us today.